Part 26. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 251. Chapter 251, They are bad, don't play with them. Tang Wan nodded and asked Go 11 to follow him to the hospital. It's not accurate to say it's a hospital. It's probably a nursing home with a small number of people. When Tang Wan and others saw Chenchuo, they found that his face was even worse than before. Go 11, who originally planned to have a good time with Chenchuo, saw Chenchuo like this and hurriedly walked to his side and said, "What's wrong with you? Why do you look so haggard? Did you not eat well? People are like iron, rice and steel. If you don't eat one meal, you will feel hungry." Go 11 still spoke like a machine gun. Every time she disagreed with her, she would send out a long burst of output, leaving Chenchuo no chance to talk to her. Finally, after Go 11 finished venting, he stopped talking and looked at Chenchuo as he prepared to make up some excuse to lie to him. However, Chenchuo didn't make up any excuses, and just said calmly, "It's okay." This is even more suspicious. Tang Wan looked at the haggard look on Chenchuo's face, then looked at the empty space in his room, and probably understood why this was the case. In Chenchuo's eyes, his family members were probably traitors, and it was normal that no one came to visit him when he was hospitalized. That's what reason told Chenchuo, but what he couldn't let go of was his previous self-esteem. How could he just accept that his family had become like this? They were not like this before. This is the first time Tang Wan saw a deceived person like this. Could it be that Si and Grandma Si were like this in the past? However, Fu Wenzi, who was standing next to Tang Wan, said in a low voice, "They are different." Tang Wan? Tang Wan feels that something is not good now. Why can Fu Wenzi guess whatever he thinks about now? I felt like I was transparent in front of Fu Wenzi. This feeling is very bad. Tang Wan doesn't like it. Insecure. Fu Wenzi looked at Tang Wan's slightly repulsive look and narrowed his eyes slightly. His fingertips rubbed it slightly, realizing that he was still impatient. Should take it a little more slowly. Tang Wan is still wary of himself, so he should wait for a while. But obviously, such a thought only passed by for a moment, and soon Tang Wan's eyes fell on Chenchuo again. He lost a lot of weight. In the past, Chenchuo was also a high-spirited young man. Although he has a venomous tongue, it is actually just because he doesn't like others to discuss him. Now it seems as if it has been forgotten by the world, lonely and lonely. Tang Wan was silent for a moment, and just as he was about to say something, he heard Go 11 speak again. "What do you mean it's okay? You are so thin now, how can you say it's okay?" Go 11 has always been careless and would not care about Chenchuo's sad autumn mood. Maybe it's not that she can't understand, or that she doesn't understand, but these additional things are not as important as her friends, so she pretends that she doesn't know anything, and directly takes Chenchuo's wrist and sits on the table. She took out a lot of candies and fruits from her bag. Tang Wan also saw her taking out the food she had prepared and placing them one by one in front of Chenchuo, saying, eat quickly, it will be a new year after eating." Chenchuo's eyes seemed to have a layer of mist, making it difficult to see clearly. He raised his head, glanced at the friends present, and finally lowered his head, saying in a watery voice, "I don't want you to have mercy on me. I don't want to celebrate the new year anyway, so take your things with me." He suddenly lost his temper and swept all the candies and fruits prepared by Go 11 to the ground. As for the meals prepared by Tang Wan, I don't know, because I was really hungry, so I was a little reluctant to part with them. Anyway, the steaming ones were safely stored on the table. Lu Zi, who was standing behind Go 11, took a look and quickly picked Go 11 up from the stool to avoid the attack of those candies and fruits. Go 11 seemed to be frightened, her eyes were red, and she didn't say a word for a long time. Instead, it was Chenchuo who said abnormally, I don't want you to pity me. Get out of here. However, no one moved. Go 11 squatted down silently, picked up the candies and fruits on the ground one by one, and put them on the table. Chenchuo wanted to say something else, but he saw that Go 11, who had been smiling all the time, was crying silently. She bit her lower lip with her teeth, not letting the sound of crying come out, but her big tears fell to the ground drop by drop. Lu Ziyi had an unhappy expression on his face. He still couldn't hold back his temper and said, "What are you losing your temper about? We haven't seen each other for so many years. Everyone just wants to celebrate the new year with you. I'm not pitying you, how could we use such words between us? I haven't seen Chenchuo in these years. Has your Chinese language regressed to the primitive times? 1111 has been choosing these candies for a long time. She is eating delicious candies and wants to share them with you. There are also meals on the table, which Tang Tang has been saying that she wants to eat with you and celebrate the new year together. We are friends, how could we miss you like that?" Chenchuo seemed to be dumbfounded by Lu Ziyi's scolding. He opened and closed his mouth, but stopped talking. Finally, he closed his eyes and his face became increasingly pale. Seeing this, Tang Wan sighed, pulled Go 11 who was still staring at Chenchuo stubbornly, stretched out his arms to hug the aggrieved Go 11, patted her back gently, and coaxed her in a low voice. Okay, Chenchuo is unreasonable, he is bad. Ugh, Go 11 still couldn't hold back her tears and crying, and burst into tears all of a sudden. The snot and tears fell together, and he looked very pitiful. Lu Ziyi disliked Go 11's snot, so he wiped her nose with paper, making Go 11's face confused. Lu Ziyi was still chattering on the side, "Oh, wipe your nose quickly, don't let it fall on Tang Tang, it's dirty." Wow, Go 11, who was disliked by Lu Ziyi, cried even louder. Woo, hiccup, I kept hiccuping until the end of my crying. He was still saying unconvincedly, "Chenchuo, you are really bad. Lu Ziyi is also bad, wow. Lu Ziyi frowned and covered his ears with a look of disgust. In the end, Tang Wan comforted Go 11, who was extremely aggrieved, and took her outside to stop playing with these bad things. As he walked, he muttered, "Let's go out to play, not play with them anymore." Well, Go 11, who was sobbing, had not forgotten Fu Wenzi. After all, Fu Wenzi was the only one who had not offended him. But Tang Wan took Go 11's hand and said casually, "If he doesn't come out, he will help you beat him up." Good. Go 11's eyes suddenly lit up when she heard that Fu Wenzi would beat someone up for her. The energy is also coming. She waved her fist and said in a tearful voice, "Punch them hard." The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 252. Chapter 252 I promise you. Fu Wenzi had a warm smile on his face, nodded, and then closed the door. Lu Ziyi, who was standing closest to Fu Wenzi, jumped away, forming a safe distance, and then shouted, "Wait! You don't really want to beat us? Let me tell you, I will fight back." Fu Wenzi ignored Lu Ziyi, just looked at Chenchuo and said, "Tell me the news about Fur." Lu Ziyi? Lu Ziyi was still a little confused, "What are you talking about? Let's talk to me, who is full? You guys are ignoring me like this, it makes me feel like a clown." Fu Wenzi sighed, wondering why Tang Wan didn't just take Lu Ziyi, the talkative man, out with him. Then he said, "Be quiet for a while." Lu Ziyi. Lu Ziyi felt that Fu Wenzi and Tang Wan were going too far. The closer they got, the more they regarded themselves as outsiders. It is obvious that he and Tang Wan are a family. But Lu Ziyi also knew that what Fu Wenzi and Tang Wan were doing was not something ordinary people could participate in. In order not to let their plan fail, Lu Ziyi sat down obediently and pressed the mute button. Chen Shuo didn't expect that the food chain between friends has evolved to this extent, and he was a little surprised. But soon his attention was focused on Fu Wenzi. Although he had already thought about telling them, he still said unforgivingly, "If you say so, I will tell you." Now that the Chen family and the Brown family are about to cooperate in depth, if you say it now, wouldn't you be putting your own family on the fire? Although he didn't understand why his brother did this, Chen Shuo closed his eyes, feeling very painful. Tell yourself rationally that you should give up your family because you are responsible for more people. But sensibility made him shut up. That's my family. This is the home where I grew up. Seeing Chen Shuo struggling like this, Fu Wenzi suddenly said, "I didn't expect that during the time you were abroad, you actually lost your IQ abroad." Chen Shuo? I was scolded suddenly, and I still couldn't react. Is Fu Wenzi's temper like this now? If you don't agree with someone, you'll get angry. However, the expression on Fu Wenzi's face was still so gentle, as if he was not the one who spoke so venomously just now. Chen Shuo looked at Fu Wenzi, trying to figure out what he meant, when he heard Fu Wenzi say, "Do you know why you were sent to this hospital?" Chen Shuo thought that he had been alone these days, and the emotions that had just risen suddenly disappeared, becoming lifeless at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, all that was left was, "I don't know, and I don't care." Unexpectedly, Fu Wenzi said somewhat unexpectedly, "You should pay attention." What's the meaning? Seeing that Chen Shuo really didn't know anything, Fu Wenzi sighed and explained, "This looks like a hospital, but in fact it is a very private nursing home. The people who live here are the same people as Grandma Si. Now, do you understand what I mean?" Chen Shuo's expression was a little blank and he looked dull. He was silent for a long time, and then he seemed to have found his voice, and his body began to tremble. "What do you mean? Is our family the same as the Xue family?" His words were not spoken, but Fu Wenzi understood them. Fu Wenzi nodded and said directly, "It is for your safety that you are placed here so that no one else can come in. You should know that your family members have gone abroad. This is to reassure the Brown family. You came back because you were released by Fur. Although I don't know what he wanted to do, he can't go wrong by protecting you. Although you lose your freedom, you at least saved a life, right?" Fu Wenzi said after finishing this. I saw Chen Shuo slumped on the hospital bed as if his strength had been taken away, and he was still repeating, "So it is like this, so it is like this. No wonder my brother told Full that he wanted me to come back, that I knew Tangwan, and asked me to be a bait. It turns out he wanted me to go home." At this point, Chen Shuo reached out to cover his eyes, raised his head, and stopped looking at Fu Wenzi. As for Lu Ziyi, he had already opened his eyes wide and huddled in the corner, wishing he were deaf. "Help, can I really hear such a message? Ah! Chen Shuo's life is his life, but his own life is not his life." Lu Ziyi stretched out his hand to cover his rapidly beating heart, feeling that if he stayed here for a while longer, he would almost die. However, a trace of curiosity arose in his heart. To be honest, he was really curious about what Chen Shuo was going to say next. Although the elders in the family have been hiding it from him these years, he still got a glimpse of Tang Wan's past. Because of this, Lu Ziyi realized how hard-won the stable life they were living now was. How many people are marching forward for this peaceful world? Fu Wenzi gave Chen Shuo enough time to sort out his emotions. They all know that they will not deceive their own people. Chen Shuo lowered his head, wiped his eyes hard with the back of his hand, and said, "Okay, I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. Go 11 is very easy to coax." Tangwan and Go 11 stayed at the door for a while, and Go 11 stopped crying. But she did not say anything about going back to the ward. Tangwan felt a little uncomfortable watching Go 11 keep talking about wanting to visit here and there. What she and Fu Wenzi do should not be done with great fanfare or involve too many people. This is for protection and confidentiality. But looking at Go 11's considerate look, Tang Wan still felt a little guilty in his heart. However, Go 11 suddenly said, "I volunteer." Tang Wan slowly raised his head and looked at Go 11, looking at him seriously. In those bright eyes, there is all the trust in Tang Wan. I know that Tang Tang and Zhi are doing something very dangerous. I also know that you don't tell me because it's for my own good. Tang Tang, I understand everything. I am willing to be used by you. Tang Wan stood there, the wind blowing through the garden of the sanatorium, bringing the fragrance of some flowers that had not completely withered. They spread across Tang Wan and Go 11's bodies, as if they drew an invisible line, tightly connecting the two. Go 11 is the same bright sunflower as before, but her voice is trembling. I know my abilities are limited, but Tang Tang, you must be careful. I do not want to lose you. You are my most important friend, I can't lose you. Tang Wan stretched out his hand, hugged the trembling Go 11 tightly, and replied firmly and solemnly in Go 11's ear. I promise you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 253. Chapter 253. He is the most worry-free kid. Tang Wan seldom makes guarantees to others, but her guarantees will definitely be fulfilled. Tang Wan has always been a person who values commitment. Go 11 was relieved after receiving Tang Wan's assurance. She let go of her arms, then lowered her head and whispered, "Tang Tang, I'm leaving Jingqiao." Tang Wan raised his head in surprise, a little confused as to where Go 11 was going. Go 11 would never hide anything from herself, let alone Tang Wan, so she said, "I'm going to join the army. I've been training since I was young. You know, my mother has always served the country, and I want to be like my mother and be like her. I know, Tang Tang, you also want to be a person who protects others. As your best friend, how can I let you fight alone? I'm not as smart as you, and I'm not as quick as you, but I can catch up with you in my own way. Tang Tang, when we both reach the top, we will definitely meet again, right?" Tang Wan then realized why Go 11 had to celebrate the new year with everyone this year. This is a reunion, but also a long farewell. Life is so long, Tang Wan has been learning to say goodbye, but every time, it makes her unhappy. But Tang Wan also knew that the separation this time was just to meet better next time, and they would eventually meet again. Go 11 smiled guiltily as Tang Wan remained silent. "I didn't mean to tell you this now, it's just because I don't want to ruin everyone's good mood." Go 11 never said anything. Thinking about it now, every hug is a countdown to leaving. Now, it's time for them to part ways. Thinking of this, Go 11 opened his arms and made a hug. His voice was nasal, "Come on, Tang Tang. This is the last hug before leaving." Tang Wan threw herself into Go 11's arms for the first time, and then hugged her best friend tightly. She is rare and not good at words. Go 11, however, said happily, "Ha ha ha, I really envy them." Tang Tang took the initiative to hug me. "Don't be sad, we just want to meet again." Go 11, who has always been brave and careful, took out the handkerchief and wiped the tears on Tang Wan's face, and then left here with her mother, who had been waiting for who knows how long. Tang Wan stood there and looked at Go 11's back for a long time. When the sun in the sky had almost set, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, then turned around neatly and walked back the way she came. She believes that as long as everyone works together, one day all their dreams will come true, and they will meet again and run in the sun again. By the time Tang Wan returned to the ward, Chen Chuo's face was even paler, but his mental state was much better than before, and he was not as decadent as before. even said hello when he saw Tang Wan coming back. Tang Wan looked at him, nodded slightly and replied. Zixi left just now. Gone? Where have you gone? It was not Chen Chuo who said this, but Lu Ziyi, who always liked to quarrel with Go 11. He stood up from the stool abruptly, and without caring about anything else, grabbed Tang Wan's hand and asked, where has she gone? Isn't she going back with us? If it were before today, Lu Ziyi might not be so nervous, and he would simply think that Go 11 just went home alone. But after today, Lu Ziyi discovered that the world may not be as simple as he imagined. What he thought was a stable life may just be what he thought. Chen Chuo's elders and brothers became undercover agents. Even Fu Wenzi and Tang Wan joined the National Youth Organization a long time ago. Only myself and Go 11 know nothing. No, now we shouldn't say that neither we nor Go 11 know. Now only I don't know. He raised his head, with a rare fragility in his eyes, and asked in a trembling voice, is she home? That kind of expectation made even Tang Wan feel uncomfortable when he saw it. Tang Wan was in a rare evasive mood. She lowered her head and whispered, no, she won't come back. She has her own mission. Lu Ziyi almost collapsed. He took a step back suddenly, looked at his friend standing in front of him, and repeated over and over again, okay, okay. You are all good, but I am the only one who knows nothing and is nothing. We grew up together and spent so many years together. You're just blocking me out like this. Should I wait until you are all dead and let me collect your bodies, then I will know that my friends, the friends I grew up with, are all unsung heroes for the country. Only me, only I did not join you, because you need someone to collect the corpses for you. Lu Ziyi's words were a bit too serious, but he was so angry that he couldn't speak without hesitation, and it sounded like he was going to explode. No one who was scolded by him responded. Only Chen Chuo touched the tip of his nose and whispered, just scold them, what are you scolding me for? I was also kept in the dark. Tang Wan looked at Chen Chuo with a complicated expression, feeling a little hard to explain. Chen Chuo, just after he got better, he started to have a venomous tongue again, which is really hard to describe. The tense atmosphere in the ward was also broken up by Chen Chuo's words, at least it was not as tense as before. Lu Ziyi also realized that what he just said was vicious, but he was so angry that he couldn't bear to apologize to everyone for a while. He could only stand there with a red face and stubbornly said nothing. Of course, I still feel aggrieved. I feel like I have been blocked by all my friends. I foolishly spoke for them. He would think that all these things he heard would be hypnotized and forgotten. It turns out, good guys, there are so many people, one by one, and they are about to serve the country at a young age. What about yourself? Ah, I am still where I am. The more Lu Ziyi thought about it, the angrier he became, and the more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he became. At this moment, a small hand held Lu Ziyi's wrist, and Tang Wan's hoarse voice sounded in his ear, as if he had just cried. Brother Ziz, don't be angry. We're not hiding it from you, but... How should I put it, the reason why Lu Ziyi did not join them was because the Lu family did not have a blood feud like Tang Wan. They didn't take the initiative to ask for help like Chen Chuo's family. It's not even like Go 11's, where a woman inherits her mother's business. Even Fu Wenzi was forced to do this because he was too smart and his family was afraid that he would go astray. And Lu Ziyi is really the most reassuring little kid among them. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 254. Chapter 254. Don't say that, Zizi is not such a person. Lu Ziyi is easy to be soft-hearted, especially towards Tang Wan. He has always been easy to be manipulated by Tang Wan. So when Tang Wan spoke up, Lu Ziyi was actually not too angry. He was just not only angry but also afraid. He has seen the tombstone at Tang Guan's mother's house, the blood-stained past, and the complete corpse that has not been pieced together until now. He didn't want the friend he cherished since childhood to become like that. He didn't want little Tangwan to turn into a little box and lie lifeless in the cold cemetery. She just needs to grow up healthy and happy. Why does she have to do these dangerous things? But Lu Ziyi looked into Tangwan's eyes and swallowed all the words he wanted to say. He has always respected Tangwan's decision. This time, there will be no exception. Unnoticed by anyone, Fu Wenzi's gaze had been falling on the place where Tangwan and Lu Ziyi's fingers intersected. Silently licked the tip of his teeth with the tip of his tongue. Fu Wenzi knew clearly that the Lu family was different from anyone else in Tangwan's eyes. Even Lu Ziyi has privileges that others cannot achieve. At least Tangwan has never treated himself with such a tone and attitude. Such thoughts made Fu Wenzi feel a little angry. This feeling of not being able to control everything made him particularly irritable. It's just that he has always been self-possessed and can suppress the malice in his heart, but the look he looked at Tangwan was really not normal. Chen Shuo closed his eyes silently and focused on one thing, out of sight and out of mind. Crazy, all crazy. Let the world be destroyed. When I came out of the ward, there were obviously 4 people on the way, but now there are only 3 people left. As the 3 cubs were walking back, there was fresh snow falling in the sky. They are scattered on the heads of the 3 cubs, like small white flowers, covering the world with a silver gauze. Tangwan held it up with both hands, and there were some snowflakes in his palms. She whispered, "It's snowing. Auspicious snow heralds a good harvest, and there will definitely be a bumper harvest next year." Lu Ziyi twitched the corners of his lips, but found that he couldn't laugh at all. He could only suppress all his emotions, looked at Tangwan and said, "It will be fine, everything will be fine." He looked firmly at the looming moon and said firmly, "It will get better and better." Tangwan wanted to say something else, but he felt a scarf fall on his head, isolating the white snow. Tangwan didn't even need to turn around to know who the person who made such a move was. It is Fu Wenzi. He took off his scarf, wrapped Tangwan's head, and whispered, "Be careful, don't catch a cold." Among them, Tangwan is the weakest. Even though he has been carefully cared for over the years, the root of the disease has still fallen into his body. Tangwan's whole little face was buried in the scarf, and there was a familiar mint fragrance in her nose, wrapping her up. Obviously it tastes very cold, but for some reason, it is the source of warmth in this cold new year. Tangwan knew that this was all his illusion. It was only because I had just left my best friend that I found Fu Wenzi's company so precious. At this moment, Fu Wenzi suddenly said in a voice that only 2 people could hear, "Don't worry. I will always be here." This is the chain Fu Wenzi found for himself. It is also the only anchor point in this world without coordinates. As long as he stayed by Tangwan's side, Fu Wenzi would not be at risk of getting lost. Lu Ziyi in front saw that his 2 friends were leaving him alone as they walked, and ran back in a hurry, grabbed a little cub with one hand, and jumped towards home. "Let's go home." Tangwan's eyes were brighter than the moon in the sky. She nodded heavily, "Yes. Go home." But Fu Wenzi's eyes kept falling on Tangwan. "Haven't left." In the blink of an eye, spring has passed and autumn has come, and Tangwan has been elected as the student union president for 9 consecutive years. This year is her last year as president of the junior high school and primary school. In the past 9 years, the entire school has changed, which can be called a complete transformation. The previous situation of using family background to suppress others is almost gone. And grades are not the only criterion for evaluating these children. In addition to the self-study rooms, the new consultation rooms and reflection rooms are also a major feature of Lingyun College. Many schools come here to learn the management plan of the student union, but most of them fail. For no other reason, Tangwan's management style is not something that ordinary people can learn. Students who take their grades as their privilege will not fare better than Tang Wan and Fu Wenzi. Those students whose family background is their privilege will not be better than the small group in Tang Wan. In terms of ability and ability to compete, not to mention, not many people can compare to Ying Tang Wan and her Secretary General. Tang Wan and Fu Wenzi are almost the twin stars of Lingyuan College, one is the bright sun, and the other is the bright moon in the night. They are inseparable, like a shadow and its master, invincible. Now, Tang Wan looked at the high school student union invitation, frowned, and wanted to refuse. If she wanted to become the student union president in high school, she would have been the president for 12 years. How many 12 years are there in life? But Tang Wan's refusal may have little effect. Because the president of the high school club is Tang Wan's little fanboy, he almost fell to his knees in front of Tang Wan. Junior president, just promise me, Kak, if you weren't the president of the high school, they would tear me apart. How can other people control those skinny monkeys? You save people to the end, and send Buddhas to the west. For the last 3 years, you can just be together. Tang Wan didn't say anything. He looked at Fu Wenzi, who was now a senior in high school, and said, "Can't you just leave it to Zhizi?" Zhizi? The president of the high school felt as if he was being shown off when he heard this disgusting title. Fu Wenzi is so lucky. I just participated in the same variety show with the young president, and I have been friends with the young president for so long. He is so jealous. The high school president's expression was distorted, and he seemed to be extremely angry with this person. However, Tang Wan just looked at him with some confusion, and then said, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong?" "Of course not," the high school president quickly interrupted Tang Wan. His voice was a little high, which startled Tang Wan. "You don't know, little president, he has been organizing the student union of the junior high school. We won't be able to do it without you. Can't call him." Tang Wan heard this and felt that they might have some misunderstandings about Fu Wenzi. For no other reason than that Fu Wenzi has become much more restrained in recent years and is not as difficult to get along with as before. But they still wear colored glasses and look at Fu Wenzi with old eyes, which is unfair to Fu Wenzi. So Tang Wan shook his head. "Don't say that, Zhizi is not that kind of person." End of this chapter. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 255. Chapter 255 Pretending to be deaf and dumb. The high school president looked at Tang Wan's expression that didn't look fake, and then glanced at Fu Wenzi, who was standing next to Tang Wan. Look at Tang Wan and Fu Wenzi again. The expression on his face gradually became distorted. All right, all right, all right. He finally understood that these two people have filters for each other, right? They are all outsiders. They don't understand their feelings, do they? President of the high school, the more I think about it, the more I feel wronged, and the more I think about it, the more tears come to my eyes. How abominable. This is obviously my idol. However, at this time, the high school president did not dare to express his thoughts. After all, if I dared to speak out at this time, I would definitely be targeted by a petty person like Fu Wenzi. He looks smiling and seems to be easy to get along with, but in fact he is full of bad ideas. The president of the high school felt a little scared when he thought of this. He was really afraid of Fu Wenzi. Fu Wenzi has always been indifferent, so he doesn't care much about people or things outside Tang Wan. The president of the high school grabbed Tang Wan's hand and said with all his strength, Tang, please help me." When Tang Wan heard this, he was stunned for a moment, then shook his head. To be honest, she is tired of being the so-called student council president. What's more, there is no one else who can be the student president after her. Tang Wan has already trained many people who can be student council presidents, and she no longer needs to support them. However, Just when Tang Wan refused again, the high school president suddenly lowered his head, looking as if he was about to cry. Tang Wan was a little panicked. To be honest, after so many years, she was still not used to someone crying in front of her. Fu Wenzi, who was beside Tang Wan, heard Tang Wan agree before he could say anything. He raised his hand and took it back again. He just looked at Tang Wan with a complicated expression, feeling that she had been deceived again. Tang Wan turned his head in confusion, wondering why Fu Wenzi raised his hand. However, the next second, the high school president, who looked like he was crying in front of Tang Wan, just raised his head without any trace of tears. Tang Wan realized this time that he had been deceived. Before she could say anything, the president in front of her suddenly took Tang Wan's hand and said excitedly, "Then we have an agreement. You promised me." Tang Wan. Tang Wan regretted for a moment. But seeing the high school president's excited look, Tang Wan swallowed everything he wanted to say and could only nod helplessly. "Forget it, I have been the president for 9 years, let them do the last 3 years." With this thought in mind, Tang Wan took over the position of high school president. He was preparing to enter high school next year, so he took over the responsibility of high school president. Tang Wan is just entering high school, and Fu Wenzi and Lu Ziyi are about to enter university. This group of children will finally enter the next stage of their lives. Tang Wan was thinking as he sorted out the junior high school student union's information and handed them over to the chosen heir. This is probably a kind of inheritance and a continuation. Since Tang Wan took charge of the student union, everything has been developing in a good direction. It is no longer as ruthless and cold as before. A lot more temperature. As for Fu Wenzi, it was only when the high school president left that he said, "Lu Ziyi and I will not be studying here next year." Tang Wan nodded, looking no different from usual. Finally, Fu Wenzi sighed and said, "I'm not used to it." Tang Wan raised his head and looked at Fu Wenzi, tilting his head as he did when he was a child, like a cute kitten. Fu Wenzi's voice also sounded next to Tang Wan. His voice after puberty had lost the youthfulness of his youth, and his voice became a little deeper. Just talking in ordinary words is like a whisper between lovers, especially ambiguous. It's just that in Tang Wan's eyes, her relationship with Fu Wenzi was innocent, so naturally it couldn't be called ambiguous. Even though Fu Wenzi was full of youthful hormones, in Tang Wan's eyes, he was still the person who was subdued by Tang Wan that night. Submission and dominance are processes that they have become accustomed to each other over the years. Thinking of this, Tang Wan felt that what Fu Wenzi wanted was her other answer, so she was silent for a moment and said, "Then you should come back more often when you have time." "I don't like a person." Tang Wan knew that these were the words Fu Wenzi wanted to hear. But when she raised her head, she saw an unfamiliar emotion in Fu Wenzi's eyes. It's not that he is a stranger, but many times she is caught off guard by such looks, and rarely looks at each other so directly. Because this look in her eyes made Tang Wan feel that her relationship with Fu Wenzi was not what she imagined. It is not that she is dominating Fu Wenzi, but that Fu Wenzi is suppressing himself and coveting himself. Tang Wan didn't want the pure friendship between them to be stained with these dirty colors. She doesn't think their relationship will have any other color. So, she just turned a blind eye. Pretend to know nothing. Do not respond, do not reply. Leave it as is. After handing over all the business at hand, Tang Wan tidied the work table, placed his school bag in Fu Wenzi's hand as usual, and then said, "I'm going to the bathroom, wait for me." Without waiting for Fu Wenzi's reply, he left first. Her broken hair brushed Fu Wenzi's cheek, carrying Fu Wenzi's familiar smell, which was intertwined and inseparable with the mint fragrance that was integrated into his bones. But Lu Ziyi popped out of that look, glanced at the skull bag in Fu Wenzi's hand, and then gloated, "She still pretends not to know anything. Tisk, 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 how long are you going to stay alone in an empty room?" Fu Wenzi lowered his head, the smile on his face did not change at all, but what he said made Lu Ziyi very unhappy. Specially poked at his lung tube. That's nothing compared to you, who only contacts me once a year. As soon as Lu Ziyi heard this, the lollipop in his hand lost its sweetness. He took the lollipop out of his hand, frowned, and said in a somewhat irritable tone, "Okay, okay, I'm afraid of you. I really can't bear any loss at all. Fortunately, Tang Tang still thinks you are gentle. As long as you are gentle, there will be no gentle people in this world." When Fu Wenzi heard him mention Tang Wan again, he imitated Tang Wan, tilted his head, and asked in confusion, "Am I not gentle?" Lu Ziyi. Lu Ziyi crossed his hands across his chest and rubbed his arms vigorously, as if goosebumps were falling all over the floor. Then he said, "No, no, no, don't insult the word gentle. You, a person with a human face and an animal heart, can probably only act like a human being in front of her. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 256. Chapter 256 House Demolition Effect. At this point, Lu Ziyi shrugged, and his tone was a little careless, "Just keep it as it is. You don't need to treat us as human beings." When Lu Ziyi was young, he felt that his friend Fu Wenzi was not the indifferent child that everyone said. It wasn't until he grew up that he wasn't as easily deceived as he was when he was a child, and then he realized that what Chen Chuo said before. It's so right. Fu Wenzi, this piece of shit, is really not a human being. Has anyone seen anyone lock everyone together in order to celebrate the birthday of the person they like? The temperature was about to drop by that time, so he locked people together just to give Tang Tang a surprise. That guy Chen Chuo has been living in a nursing home for several years, but Fu Wenzi captured him and locked him up in the villa. Even Go 11 was blindfolded and taken out. Just to fulfill Tang Tang's wish, I hope everyone can be together. They have arms and legs and can crawl back. However, Fu Wenzi didn't care about this. When he did these things, he was simply an indifferent devil who didn't care about anything but served Tang Wan. It's so outrageous. Lu Ziyi felt his teeth itching when he thought of this. This is certainly not the only thing that Fu Wenzi doesn't do as a human being. Because he has been working in a very confidential department of the country since he was very young, and sometimes he can do things that ordinary people cannot do. The most outrageous thing is setting off fireworks. They prohibit fireworks here. In order to let Tang Tang watch the latest fireworks, he directly set up a cordon, booked a beach, and let Tang Tang watch the fireworks for 3 hours. Of course, Lu Ziyi didn't mean that there was anything wrong with Fu Wenzi being so nice to Tang Tang, but he just felt that this guy really didn't take anyone seriously. These are small things. Sometimes it's really a tightrope walk. Tang Wan is also a very upright person. If Tang Tang's thoughts are not right, Fu Wenzi will probably become the sharpest knife in Tang Wan's hand. They are both highly intelligent people, and if they do something sinful, it is almost impossible to catch them. Not to mention, Fu Wenzi still has some unhuman qualities. It is difficult to control Fu Wenzi like this. Fortunately, Tang Wan's name was engraved on his neck, and his reins were in Tang Wan's hand. So this vicious dog cannot hurt people. Thinking of this, Lu Ziyi chewed up the lollipop in his mouth, ate it wholeheartedly, and asked Fu Wenzi, "Will you come to see Tang Tang often?" The smile on Fu Wenzi's face was gentle, and his words were unusually vulgar and impatient. "What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Ziyi. Okay. Fine. It was my own presumption." After a while, Lu Ziyi spoke again, "Then do you know what that girl was doing during this period?" When Lu Ziyi said this, there was a suspicious blush on his face, and he was still deceiving himself. I don't care about her. I'm just curious. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and scratched his face, as if doing so could cool him down, and then said, I mean, she hasn't sent me a message for a long time. She was supposed to send a letter last month, but she didn't receive it this month, so. Fu Wen saw through Lu Ziyi's true nature at a glance. I have been a proud person since I was a child, and I am still like this now. Obviously he cares about Go 11 very much, but he insists on talking about this, which is not frank at all. It seems that you can hide your feelings without expressing your feelings. Such an idea is the most ridiculous. In this world, coughing and liking are the only things that cannot be hidden. Even if you cover your mouth, your love will still show in your eyes. However, Fu Wenzi was not prepared to name names. He just nodded, and then said, something happened, I went on a mission. But I'm fine, I'm safe. Don't ask, the confidentiality level is very high. Lu Ziyi opened his mouth and suppressed what he wanted to ask just now. In the end, he just nodded with a complicated expression and said nothing more. Actually, it would be good as long as he knew that Go 11 was alive and safe. She is free, she has her own beliefs, and she knows what she is doing. The same goes for Tang Wan. Fu Wenzi did the same. So is Chen Shuo. So is he. They have all grown up and know what the road ahead of them is like. They stepped forward resolutely, wanting to become broken windows and sparks. Become a protective barrier. Just when Lu Ziyi was thinking this, Tang Wan also walked out of the bathroom. She came to the two of them, took her skull bag naturally, and asked subconsciously, what's wrong? Lu Ziyi waved his hand and said quickly, it's okay, we just talked about it for a while. We will be seniors in the future, and Tang, you are only a freshman. I think we are all inferior. However, as soon as these words were spoken, Lu Ziyi felt the cold gaze of Fu Wenzi next to him. He also realized something was wrong. He is dying, why doesn't he open any pot? God knows, they hate talking about age the most. After all, Tang Wan is younger than all of them. This will make her sad. Before Tang Wan said anything, Fu Wenzi, who was standing next to Tang Wan, took the lead and said, I remember, you are still Tang's nephew, right? In terms of seniority, you should call us. Okay, stop it, I know I was wrong, I said the wrong thing. As Lu Ziyi spoke, he clasped his hands together in a flattering manner, which made Fu Wenzi restrain his last words. Tang Wan was a little confused, but he didn't say much. He just said, but I decided to skip a grade. Huh, Lu Ziyi opened his eyes and was a little puzzled, but my uncle and Uncle Si both want you to study for a few more years and live more of your campus life. If you skip a grade now, will they agree? Tang Wan lowered her head slightly, and the broken hair on her head covered her eyes, making her expression unclear. Inexplicably, Tang Wan's voice was also a little deep, they will agree. I'm only skipping one level, I've just taken over the high school student union, I won't leave until I can at least train air for them. Oh, that's it, I thought you didn't even go to high school and were going to college with us. Tang Wan shook his head. Although Tang Wan had such a plan at the beginning. After all, she has learned almost all the courses in high school and college, so she can go directly to college. But if this is the case, neither Si nor Lu Lin would agree. Mr. Lu Sun said it well. Human nature always likes to compromise. For example, if you say that this room is too dark and you need to open a window here, everyone will definitely not allow it. But if you advocate removing the roof, they will mediate and be willing to open the windows. She wants to go to college quickly and keep up with others, so she needs to take a step back. Let the adults not notice. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 257. Chapter 257 Give all the money. Tang Wan could say it out loud, probably because he had already made such a decision in his heart. No one can change her mind. Although Tang Wan cares about what the people around her think, most of the time, Tang Wan is still a stubborn person, and she generally does not change her goals easily. Thinking of this, Fu Wenzi reached out and stroked Tang Wan's hair, and then said, "Then I'll wait for you at University A." Tang Wan nodded and replied, "Then you will be my senior from now on." When Fu Wenzi heard this, the smile on his face deepened and he looked more sincere than usual. Then he replied, "Have I not always been your senior? My little president?" The last three words seemed to be held in Fu Wenzi's mouth, with the final sound rising and adding a heart-beating arc. It just fell into Tang Wan's ears, and it was just the simplest reminder. She nodded as usual, even looked at Fu Wenzi with some worry, and said, "Are you sick? Why does your voice sound so strange?" Fu Wenzi. The expression on Fu Wenzi's face froze, but Lu Ziyi beside him laughed so hard that he looked more exaggerated and gloating about his misfortune. "Yes, yes, yes, even if he is sick, it is still a serious illness." Tang Wan frowned slightly and asked in a concerned tone, "What's wrong with you?" Lu Ziyi was about to say something more, but Fu Wenzi's voice sounded at this moment, "Lu Ziyi." Lu Ziyi heard Fu Wenzi calling him by his full name. He swallowed all his sounds at once, then took a deep breath and covered his mouth with his hand. Made a swallowing motion. There was a bit of exaggerated panic on his face, like a scared puppy. Finally, he said to Tang Wan, "I'm just kidding. Wenji's body is the best among us. How could he get sick? Even if I get sick, he won't get sick." When Tang Wan heard Lu Ziyi say such words, the concern in his eyes slowly faded away, but became filled with suspicion. But for her friends, Tang Wan had no intention of carefully analyzing what they did. She just knew that they were hiding something from her, which made her feel a little bit unsatisfied. Very strange. Isn't it normal for friends to have some secrets? Why do I care so much about Fu Wenzi hiding it from me? But Tang Wan soon stopped thinking about this. She had more important things to do, which was to prepare for the entrance ceremony and the coming-of-age ceremony for Fu Wenzi and Lu Ziyi. Despite Lu Ziyi's usual idleness, in fact, he is the biggest person besides Chen Chuo. Good news, he is the middle child. Bad news, he is only a week older than Fu Wenzi. The gap is not big, but the two people behave as if they are a generation apart. Lu Ziyi's coming-of-age ceremony was sponsored by Lu Yao. Of course, this sponsorship is not cheap. Purchase Lu Ziyi to serve tea and water at Lu's for free for 3 years after graduation. No salary. When talking about this matter, Lu Ziyi was still a little aggrieved and complained softly to Tang Wan, "To be honest, if you are so stingy, you might as well not sponsor me. Anyway, it's not like I don't have a small treasury." When Tang Wan heard this, he asked strangely, "But wasn't your little treasury empty last year?" Huh, Lu Ziyi was even more confused than Tang Wan. He scratched the back of his head strangely and said in an unusually weak tone, "No. It shouldn't be. I remember there are hundreds of thousands in it." Seeing his confused look, Tang Wan shook his head, "No, you gave all the money to Zixi." "Lu Ziyi? Isn't it?" Lu Ziyi yelled in panic, then turned on his phone and checked his balance. However, no mice will visit if it is really empty. Not even a penny left. No, why should I give money to that man? Lu Ziyi couldn't figure out when he gave Go 11 the money in the small vault, and the look he looked at Tang Wan was really pitiful. Tang Wan saw that his expression was so sincere. After a moment of silence, Tang Wan said, "You lost to her." Lu Ziyi was even more confused. "There is no such thing in my mind. You make a bet with her, whoever drinks more will give away the small treasury. On the day Go 11 turned 17, you didn't prepare any gifts, but used your small treasury to make her happy. These two sentences were not said by Tang Wan, but added by Fu Wenzi, who had been silent. Although he still looked leisurely and had nothing to do with himself, his eyes revealed a bit of a good show. It is simply not a big deal and still adding fuel to the fire. Lu Ziyi looked at Fu Wenzi silently, and recalled what happened that day in his memory that he could barely remember. Then he remembered that the gift he wanted to give to Go 11 was stolen that day, so he came up with this method to make Go 11 happy. Of course, it is also to give Go 11 some money so that she can take good care of herself and not be stingy with money. After all, in addition to having money, these people are still rich. Lu Ziyi thinks that he can't help much with other matters. What he has to do is to become the most solid backing for their small group. Just like Uncle Siwei, protect everyone with money. Master core technologies and become an economic center. These are the goals and plans Lu Ziyi has set for himself over the years. Thinking of this, Lu Ziyi finally felt a little embarrassed. His cheeks were a little red, and then he whispered, "Ah, I remembered, I lost to that man-woman on purpose. How could I not be able to drink from her? Huh, if I hadn't been merciful, she wouldn't have been able to get my little treasury." This matter was lightly revealed like this. Tang Wan looked at Lu Ziyi's red cheeks and suddenly felt a little strange. Although the Lu family is not short of money and Lu Ziyi has never been in embarrassment, for some reason, Tang Wan has a feeling that Lu Ziyi likes the feeling of having no money now. No, that's not right. Tang Wan soon denied what he had just thought, but a more exaggerated idea emerged in his mind. What Lu Ziyi likes is not the current situation of having no money, he likes his money to be controlled by Zixi. But why? Tang Wan can't figure this out. Although we are all good friends, how can any good friend be willing to give his money to another person? And keep none of it, all the money? Just when Tang Wan was puzzled, Gong Xiao, who had been classmates with Tang Wan for 9 years, suddenly sent Tang Wan a message that read: "Xiaoxiao, Tang Tang, do you know how extreme Ji Helen's fiancé is? Xiao Xiao, she actually confiscated all Ji Helen's money. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head?" Chapter 258. Chapter 258 Abnormal Relationship. Tang Wan hasn't heard from Ji Helen and his fiancé for a long time. It's not that she hasn't heard from them, it's just that she doesn't deliberately understand them. I don't know if Tang Wan is too sensitive. She always thinks Ji Helen and his fiancé Zheng Shui are weird. That Zheng Shui's health is even worse than mine. I had to take leave every 3 days, and my grades were always low, which lowered the average score of the class. I almost repeated a grade several times. If it weren't for Ji Helen always saying that his family and the Zheng family could contribute money to maintain the school, Zheng Shui might have repeated the grade long ago. Furthermore, Zheng Shui looked at herself very strangely. It wasn't pure malice, but a more sticky look that Tang Wan didn't like. The strangest thing about Tang Wan is that every time he participates in any art competition, Zheng Shui will also participate by coincidence. And every time, he would sit next to his seat and play or paint the same theme as himself. Tang Wan is not a dictatorial person, but she just feels that her behavior is a bit strange and she is not used to it. But Tang Wan soon recovered from those memories, and instead looked at the message sent by Gong Xiao, raised his hand, and replied: "Tang Tang, they are an unmarried couple. Is it normal for them to be in charge of each other's money? After all, Lu Ziyi and Zixi are not an unmarried couple, and Lu Ziyi has handed over his financial power. Their closer relationship should be even more different." However, the next second, Gong Xiao's voice came over. Tang Wan looked at the voice above for 60 seconds and felt a little resistant. She really doesn't like such long voice strips, so why can't she type? However, Even though Tang Wan thought so in her heart, she did not pause for a moment and clicked on the voice bar. Can also be used outside. Lu Ziyi and Fu Wenzi beside her also heard it clearly. Tang Tang. What nonsense are you talking about? They don't have sweet love, how can they hand over their money? Let me tell you, Ji Helen must have done something outside and Zheng Shui discovered it, so she decided to declare her sovereignty like this. But it's hard for us outsiders to say anything. I just feel that Ji Helen has not been as arrogant and domineering as before in recent years. He has become more and more silent, which is really unaccustomed. Gong Xiao's voice was still so cold, but the words she spoke were completely inconsistent with her temperament. Very gossipy. This was also discovered after Tang Wan got on well with Gong Xiao later. Gong Xiao was suppressed a bit because her family was usually very strict and she was not allowed to know any gossip. Now I will tell Tang Wan and Fu Reihan if I have any gossip. Fortunately, neither of them are talkative people, so they are very suitable for Gong Xiao's tree hole. Gong Xiao probably didn't expect that there were two people beside Tang Wan this time. Lu Ziyi blushed even more when he heard Gong Xiao's words. Obviously he was thinking about what he just mentioned, and his voice was hesitant. What he said was, well, there are other situations. Tang Wan's eyes fell on Lu Ziyi, making him even more nervous. Start to talk nonsense. We have such a good relationship, what's wrong with keeping each other's small treasury? Didn't I hear that I didn't give you a small treasury? Tang Wan. Fu Wenzi. Neither of them expected that Lu Ziyi would suddenly point the arrow at themselves. But it was obvious that Fu Wenzi had handed over his small treasury to Tang Wan to take care of it a long time ago. Not only did Fu Wenzi give the small treasury to Tang Wan, Chen Chuo also gave it to Tang Wan. Tang Wan has a keen business acumen, and almost every new business will be picked up by her. In recent years, network technology has continued to develop, and the concepts of VR and the metaverse have been proposed. Only the company established by Tang Wan is working on this, and each helmet is sold at a high price. Of course, this is just like when new energy vehicles first came on the market. Almost everyone assumed that they would lose money on the first and second generation helmets they bought. They are just doing charity for later equipment. These two industries have made Tang Wan a lot of money. If it weren't for the fact that these properties were jointly owned by the Pei family, the Fu family, the Si family and the Lu family, they would have been eaten up by those people long ago. Of course, those business tycoons would not have thought that the actual controlling shareholders of the flourishing Kauma Group are a few children who have not yet reached adulthood. However, even if I thought about it, I would not dare to do it. The chains of interests behind them are entangled with each other, becoming an airtight spider web that envelops the entire country and will not let go of any clue. They will certainly not invade the privacy of others, and within the safety threshold, they will protect the legal rights of every citizen. Just to make the online environment safer, we have strengthened domestic control over personal information. The brain is the most sophisticated instrument in the world. There is no place for anything to hide in the brain. Of course these are all things for later. Now Lu Ziyi's accusation suddenly made Tang Wan feel a little uncomfortable. Yes, in a sense, Fu Wenzi's little treasury was also in the hands of Tang Wan. But Fu Wenzi said angrily, we are not a small treasury, we are a big treasury. Lu Ziyi was furious when he saw Fu Wenzi looking so proud. That's not because my uncle doesn't allow me to take advantage of Tang Tang, otherwise my small treasury will become a big treasury. Fu Wenzi obviously got an advantage and behaved well. With his hands spread out, he had no opponent at all. The words of Gong Xiao came again, this time her tone was a little strange. It's so strange, Tang Tang, is Ji Helen quarreling with Zheng Shui? Why is Ji Helen's face so ugly? I think Ji Helen usually sticks to Zheng Shui, but now she seems to be crying so pitifully. Ah, Ji Helen is gone, I'll go and deliver the paper to her. You're such a pretty girl, why are you crying so sadly, what a sin. After saying this, she stopped talking to Tangwan. Tangwan just replied okay at the end. Then he stopped Lu Ziyi from jumping angrily like a primary school boy. After she finished her meal, finished her homework, washed herself and went to bed, her cell phone suddenly rang with a rapid ringtone. Tangwan looked at Fu Reihan's dancing name with some strangeness. She remembered that Fu Reihan never liked talking, let alone calling her so late. Perhaps there is something urgent. Tangwan picked up the phone without hesitation and just said, "Hello." I heard Fu Reihan's anxious voice across from me, with a hint of crying and panic that hadn't faded away. "Tang Tang, have you seen Xiao Xiao? She hasn't come home yet, we've been looking for her for hours. Her mobile phone shows that her last contact person is you, so I want to ask, do you know where she went?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 259. Chapter 259, Lure the snake out of its hole. Tangwan heard this and walked to the computer while holding his mobile phone and turned on the computer. She did not forget to say comforting words, "Wait a minute, let me check." She didn't. Tangwan was just about to say that Gong Xiao didn't tell him where she went, but suddenly he remembered a figure. No, she might not know where Gong Xiao went. She seems to have gone to find Zheng Shui. Just when Tangwan was thinking like this, a message from Gong Xiao suddenly came on her mobile phone. It says, "Xiaoxiu, Tang Tang, Xiaoxiu is crying so sadly. I want to stay with her here. Please remember to ask for leave for me." The way he talks is nothing like Gong Xiao. Tangwan's eyes narrowed slightly, looking like a cat that had restrained its laziness, revealing its sharp claws. A cold light flashes in the darkness. So, was it Zheng Shui who detained Gong Xiao? Tangwan could only think of this person. In order not to accuse her unjustly, Tangwan rarely contacted Ji Helen. But Fu Reihan on the other end of the phone was about to collapse emotionally. She shouted, "Tang Tang, did you remember something? Can you tell me? I'm really worried about her. Woo woo woo, I really want to cry. Wow, Xiao Xiao, where have you been?" Fu Reihan said he was going to cry, but he actually started crying loudly. Tangwan also knows that such emotions are natural. In other words, if Go 11 is missing now, Tangwan will also be very sad. Tangwan choked up when he heard Fu Reihan's voice, and was silent for a moment without replying. Just when I hung up the phone, I said, "I will bring her back." Tangwan did not hear what Fu Reihan said, but just wrote it on the chat interface with Ji Helen. "Tang Tang, do you want to come out and play? A new Ching Ching bar has opened here, and the environment is not bad. Tang Tang, a few days ago, didn't you say you wanted to invest in grass and trees? Fu Wenzi and Lu Ziyi are also here. Whether the conversation can be settled depends on your ability." Tangwan knew that Ji Helen wanted to get rid of the influence of their family, so he had been looking for opportunities to get connected with Caomu over the years. It's a pity that the four groups that support each other are indestructible, and almost no one can get tickets for grass and trees in their hands. So, some people have set their sights on Tangwan, Fu Wenzi, and others. Want to start with them? Ji Helen naturally would not miss this opportunity. He first approached Tangwan and wanted to join them. It's a pity that Tangwan refused. At this time, Tangwan was most fortunate that he did not reject Ji Helen outright, otherwise the excuse he came up with now would not be able to be rounded off. Ji Helen, on the other hand, heard a special sound coming from his cell phone, and his face looked a little strange. He quickly got up and turned on his cell phone, and saw that the account he had pinned to the top had sent him a message. Ji Helen took a special look at his previous chat records with Tang Wan and found that his chat with Tang Wan was half a year ago. Thinking of this, Ji Helen sneered and murmured, "Am I a very naughty person? Why am I rushing to get in front of her Tang Wan?" The housekeeper standing next to him heard Ji Helen's voice and hurried out without staying in the room. There are some things where you just need to pretend you don't know anything. Otherwise you will only get the price of losing your high-paying job all of a sudden. Ji Helen knew that his butler was very discerning, so he watched him leave, took a slow sip of the water in his hand, and then replied. "Shuang Muo, why do you think of me now? Miss Tang Wan is really busy with business." Looking at Ji Helen's answer, Tang Wan knew that this stingy and vengeful man was looking for an explanation from him. It was impossible for Tang Wan to hand over the initiative, so when he replied to Ji Helen, his words did not reveal the slightest difference. "Tang, so you don't want this opportunity? Then let me contact Ming Hao." Ji Helen looked at Tang Wan's reply and sat up straight. His mood suddenly became a little bad, and his typing movements became more angry. "Shuang Muo, why am I still your alternative?" Tang Wan didn't know what Ji Helen was angry about, but his reply was a bit strange. At this moment, news about Fu Wenzi also popped up. Tang Wan's eyes dimmed. It seems that Fu Wenzi also knew about Gong Xiao's disappearance. In fact, Tang Wan was not worried that Zheng Shui would take Gong Xiao away, but was worried that Gong Xiao would be taken away suddenly like Sujiajia. Then, after a few years, Tang Wan saw the incomplete Gong Xiao in some places abroad. Xiao. Different from the simple Tang Wan before, she already knew that the security equipment in many places in the world was imperfect. Those places that normal people are not allowed to set foot in are all twisted desires. The most disgusting thing is tearing off human skin and transforming into a beast for the sake of profit. Tang Wan felt sick to his stomach when he thought of this. Thinking of Sujiajia's empty eyes and the humiliated appearance of her mother before her death, Tang Wan's disgust seemed to turn into reality and spread to the entire room. How many years? Several years have passed since the explosion on the island. Tang Wan never forgot the white-haired kid for a moment. She knew what she was doing and she knew what the Brown family wanted to do. The only safe blue ocean in the world, with such a big market, how can those who are walking on the tightrope not be tempted? This is a target population of more than 1 billion. Perhaps it was because Tang Wan didn't reply for a long time that made Ji Helen feel anxious. But Tang Wan looked at the time and saw that only 2 minutes had passed when Ji Helen called. Ji Helen's voice was not much different from before. Compared to Fu Wenzi and Lu Ziyi, who have already passed the period of voice change, Ji Helen's voice still has a youthful air that has not faded. It also sounds quite crisp. "Tang Wan, have you really contacted Ming Hao?" "I'm just kidding you, you." No. Tang Wan tapped the table with her finger. This was a subconscious action when she was thinking. When talking to other people, Tang Wan always speaks concisely and to the point, and never likes to say unnecessary words. Ji Helen heard Tang Wan's voice, and his questioning tone just now relaxed, and then he said with a smile, "Okay, give me the chance, I'll be there soon." Ji Helen heard Tang Wan's cold answer. He didn't know why, but he thought of Tang Wan and Fu Wenzi's coquettish behavior in the first grade, and felt his teeth were a little itchy. Inexplicably, he said something mean, not cute at all. "You talk to me the same way you treated Fu Wenzi, and I'll give you whatever you want." The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 260. Chapter 260 Dangerous and Deadly. Tang Wan heard Ji Helen's 2 words and subconsciously prepared to hang up the phone. However, as soon as she made this move, Ji Helen's call was hung up. The screen suddenly went black. Obviously, Tang Wan did not hang up the phone. Tang Wan also knows who did it. There is no one else except Fu Wenzi. At the beginning, Tang Wan and Fu Wenzi wanted to ensure each other's safety, so both parties had the right to operate the other's cell phone. It is to prevent if one of the two people is in danger, the other person will control the other person's mobile phone and destroy all the contents inside. Now used to hang up the phone, it is also overkill. But Tang Wan didn't care. That's what she is like. She has always been tolerant of her own people. Especially if they are close friends, Tang Wan is extremely protective of others. The news about Fu Wenzi came back again, but this time he was obviously a little angry. His words are really unpleasant. Don't let those words pollute your ears. Tang, yes, I know. Fu Wenzi looked at the message sent by Tang Wan, with the tip of his tongue touching the roof of his mouth. A pair of rimless glasses hung on his eyes, and the gold glasses chain fell on his slightly cold face, which looked particularly inhumane. Those smiles that were disguised in daily life disappeared at this moment, revealing the true soul under this handsome skin. Indifferent and selfish. Fu Wenzi knew that Tang Wan agreed to hand over control of his mobile phone to ensure data security. Those selfish motives are wrapped in bright righteousness, but inside are his dark and shady selfish desires. He wants to control Tang Wan's whereabouts and participate in all of Tang Wan's life. Hence, the control of his mobile phone is as important to him as breathing. He wants to know everything about Tang Wan. Of course, generally Fu Wenzi would not control Tang Wan's mobile phone, nor would he pry into Tang Wan's privacy. But when he encounters an eyesore like Ji Helen, Fu Wenzi will take action to clean them out of Tang Wan's world. The mere existence of this kind of dirty thing would stain Tang Wan's eyes. Tang Wan didn't know what dark things his best friend was thinking about. In these years of getting along with each other, Tang Wan has actually become accustomed to Fu Wenzi's desire to control him. The two of them found a new path while getting along. At least they don't feel that getting along with each other will offend each other. Fu Wenzi looked at Tang Wan's reply, and the anger that had just risen suddenly dissipated at this moment. Tang Wan has this ability to make Fu Wenzi's angry mood disappear all of a sudden. Fu Wenzi is no longer the same Fu Wenzi as before, and he also realizes that his feelings for Tang Wan are a bit strange. But the environment in which he lives does not allow for normal romantic relationships, nor is there any normal love. He just felt that Tang Wan was different from others. For Fu Wenzi, Tang Wan is a unique color in the world, and no one can make Tang Wan look any other way. No one can stand in Tang Wan's position. It is the only one in the world. It is the only thing he cherishes and is the most important. So he replied. I'm going to Qing Bar now. It's still the old box. You can come directly then. Zhizi, is Lu Ziyi asleep? Do you want to call him? Tang Wan thought for a while and decided that it would be better not to call Lu Ziyi on this matter today. The fewer people there are, the more flexible it is. So he answered. Tang, don't call him. Just bring some people and wait in the dark. If there is any accident, take action. Zhizi, okay. After saying these words, Tang Wan changed out of his pajamas, put on sportswear, and got ready to go out. Just as he opened the door, he saw Lu Lin standing at his door without even taking off his suit. His hand on the door froze. A dilemma, a bit of a dilemma. Lu Lin glanced at Tang Wan and said in a cold tone, what? Wearing sportswear and going out for a night run at night. This unforgiving manner is even more exaggerated than before. It was also the things Tang Wan did over the years that made him particularly angry. Tang Wan was silent for a moment, but shook his head honestly. It's not about running at night, it's about cleaning up with brothers Hizzy. Hearing Tang Wan say these words, Lu Lin's expression didn't look much better, but instead turned darker. His handsome eyebrows narrowed. You two little brats, stay up late at night and go drinking. Tang Wan, is it because I haven't taken care of you during this period that you are about to go to heaven? Fu Wenzi and Lu Ziyi are both coming of age, they can take responsibility for their own lives. You are only 15 years old, why are you following them? I don't know if it's because Lu Lin has gotten older in the past few years, but Lu Lin has become more and more verbose. But Tang Wan knew that Lu Lin was only worried about himself. That explosion still left an indelible psychological shadow on Lu Lin. It's useless even if Tang Wan is obedient these years. Tang Wan thought for a while, then looked at Lu Lin with his beautiful black eyes, and said seriously, "Brother, I can also be responsible for myself. I know exactly what I am doing and I will protect myself. I won't be impulsive." Tang Wan could handle Lu Lin easily when he was very young, let alone Tang Wan now. She quickly grasped the key points and answered Lu Lin seriously. "It's 8 o'clock in the evening now, I will be back before 12 o'clock. Lu Lin didn't understand why Tang Wan had to go out, but Lu Lin also knew that in the city, Tang Wan's face was the ticket to almost all high-end places. There will be no one who bullies Tang Wan without foresight. He cannot easily change Tang Wan's mind. He was just worried uncontrollably. Lu Lin thought of this and sighed, with a rare hint of loneliness in his tone. "Okay, you are older now." Tang Wan heard that there was no hidden sadness in Lu Lin's tone, turned around and hugged Lu Lin, and whispered, "Brother, you are my most important family member. I'll be back soon." Then he turned around and walked out the door. And Lu Lin clicked on his phone and called someone. S account posted a recording. "That's what Tang Wan said just now," Lu Lin said proudly. How about it, my sister is the cutest in the world. I am her important family member. You are still far away." Soon, the other party responded with a message. "Got it, Uncle Lu, uncle." Looking at the provocative reply from the other side, Lu Lin felt like his teeth were broken. The name almost came out of his teeth. "Fu Wenzi. You protect Tang Tang for me, otherwise I won't let you go." The account on the other side was quiet, obviously already busy. The night was thick, covering everything up. In the darkness, malice spreads like vines, shrouding this nightless city with a black veil. Dangerous and deadly.